You ready?
Yes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Through storytelling and conversational interviews, this weekly radio show offers listeners first-hand insight in starting and running a business, the ups and downs of risk-taking, and the commonalities of successful people. Connect with Kerry through her candid, often funny, and informative weekly blog, where you'll read and comment on life as wife, mother, daughter, and entrepreneur. And now it's time for Kerry McCoy to get all up in your business.
Thank you, Jason. Like Jason said, I'm Kerry McCoy, and it's time for me to get up in your business. Before we start, I want to introduce my co-host, who you just heard from, Jason Malik from Arise Studios in Conway, Arkansas. Say hello, Jason.
Hi, Kerry.
If right now you're sitting at your computer, you might want to watch us live on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. It's kind of fun to see what goes on behind the scenes and at the breaks as it happens in real time. We're waving at Facebook right now. If for some reason you miss any part of the show, want to hear it again, or share it, there's a way, and Jason will tell you how.
Listen to all UIYB past and present interviews by going to flagandbanner.com and clicking on Radio Show. There you may join our email list or like us on Facebook, thus getting a reminder notification of the day of the show and a sneak peek of that day's guest. And if you'd like to be an underwriter of any UIYB shows, send an email to marketing@flagandbanner.com. That's marketing@flagandbanner.com. Back to you, Kerry.
If you're tuning into this broadcast for the first time, welcome. And if you're a returning fan, you probably know this next part by heart. But at the risk of being boring, we must repeat ourselves for newcomers. And besides that, it gives my guest a chance to settle into their seat. There he is settling. This show, Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, began as a platform for me, a small business owner, and a guest to pay forward our experiential knowledge in a conversational way. Originally, my team and I thought it would speak to entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs, but it seems to have a wider audience appeal because, after all, who is inspired by everyday people's American-made stories? To see people in their totality is humanizing. We all thirst to connect and make sense of an overcomplicated world, and on this show, we have the luxury of time to go deeper than a mere soundbite or a headline. And my favorite part, we always learn something. It's no secret that successful people work hard, and boy, my guest today has worked hard all his life. But other common traits found in many of my guests are the heart of a teacher, belief in a higher power, and creativity, because business in of itself and just life is creative. My guest today, Dr. Henri Roca, the third, has done many things before receiving his medical license. Are y'all ready? He was a geologist engineer working in the hazardous waste division of Tetra Tech in San Francisco, California. There, he managed cleanup investigations and provided expert witness testimony relating to petroleum contamination. Somewhere in his 30s, he had what I'd call an identity crisis.
Coming to God moment.
And became a licensed masseuse, acupuncturist, shaman, and had the realization that helping people is what he really wanted to do, and that the best way to do it was to get a medical license. He moved back to his home of New Orleans, Louisiana, and began medical school at Louisiana State University, LSU. While studying to be a doctor, he continued to work in his field of geology as a senior hydrogeologist for Burke Kleinpeter, again investigating soil and groundwater cleanups in landfills and industrial sites. It was in 1997 that Dr. Henri Roca III graduated from LSU School of Medicine and began his medical practice. Dr. Roca is among the very few physicians in the nation who practice holistic, integrative, functional medicine. He understands there is little separation between the mind, the emotions, the spirit, and the body. He says, everything that has ever happened to you, every choice you have ever made brings you to the health you have today. I love that. This Louisiana transplant is now working and sharing his knowledge with the good people at Central Arkansas Veterans Administration in Little Rock, Arkansas. And he has opened a private practice in North Little Rock called One Medicine Wellness Services, an apt name. It is a pleasure to welcome to the table a caring teacher, orator, administrator, and community activist, Dr. Henri Roca III.
Thank you very much, Kerry. That was a wonderful introduction. Life is circuitous, right?
What's
It's
that
not a
word
direct
mean?
line.
What was that? What does that word? Say that again.
It's circuitous. It doesn't go from one place to another to another. It goes on these like journeys and you end up in a place.
That's your life.
It's the journey. That's right. It's all of our lives. It's the
You
journey.
have the longest resume of anybody I think I've ever read outside of General Wesley Clark.
Probably the curviest journey as well.
It was.
Lots of different stops along the way.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Let's find out how all of this came to be. Then we'll move into what holistic integrative medicine, functional medicine, and Western medicine means, each one of them, how we can mesh all of these together to improve our health and lifestyle. I first met you when I heard you speak, and you have strong opinions about our diet, our habits, the power of prayer meditation, touch therapy, about food as medicine, and about blending all of these aspects with Western medicine, because after all, you're a scientist.
A scientist and an observer of what makes humans human, of our condition. You know, there's an art to medicine and there's a science to medicine, and we have to use both of those components. And then there's the unknown of medicine. We think we know way more than we actually do about how the human body works. Many of our providers are far more certain than the data would suggest they should be.
Interesting.
But we have to take that into account. We have to include in our understanding of how a person works and what creates their health. We have to take into account all the facts that we know, but we have to also recognize that those facts change over time, and they are just the tip of an iceberg. The human condition is far more filled with mystery and things that are not understood than it is with things that we do understand.
I've never thought about that.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why the whole idea of choice and the whole idea of what you think about and how your mind works and how it interacts and cascades into your body, flows into your body, how your spirit works and the connections you have in the world around you, all of that also flows into our body. It turns our genes on, it turns our genes off, and it helps to contribute to either illness or wellness.
When did you come to this realization? You're a geologist.
I started off as a paleontologist, a micropaleontologist.
Is that dinosaurs?
Micropaleontology is plankton. So yes, it's the other end of the spectrum from dinosaurs. They were really big, and these things you look at under a microscope. You know, my thesis was the planktonic foraminifera of the South Atlantic in the Oligocene epoch.
What the hell?
What does that mean? Really, it is laughable, isn't it? But hey, it was very useful at the time.
Sounds
it's
awful.
just quite the subspecialist, even within paleontology. So I know what it means to take this information and bring it down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. But when you do that, you get a lot of information about a specific thing, but it doesn't mean that you understand how the oceans work or the mountains work or how the planet works or how humans work. And so that is part of my journey into healing, was the idea that I had known so much about something so specific, and I had lost the beauty of the earth because I was a geologist. That's what my initial degree was in. Paleontology is what my master's degree was in. And in rediscovering the beauty of the earth, and I have to tell you, here in Arkansas is one of those places where I rediscovered it. When I was 8 years old, I was digging for crystals in hot springs. Way before the crystal craze started.
You're kidding.
Not at all. This was the place where Louisianians came if we wanted to experience elevation. We came to Arkansas. It was the closest set of mountains you can find to Louisiana, to New Orleans. And so I fell in love with the earth and rocks here in Arkansas, in hot springs. And coming back to that, it's like, wow, look at the mystery and the majesty of the earth. I know a lot about it. I can interpret a lot about it, but there's so much more. It's such a bigger thing. And the culture that honors that is Native culture. Native American culture. They honor walking their path on the earth and recognizing nature and recognizing the seasons and how it all comes together and how it fits with the culture of the community and the life of the individual. And in that awareness, I came to the place of shamanism. So shamanism was actually my first step on the healing path.
How old were you?
How old was I? 22.
So you've graduated from LSU, or from, I don't know, where'd
Washington
you get your...
University.
Okay, Washington University. You get a job in California.
A job in New Orleans initially.
And that's when you started looking into did you say shamanism?
Yep.
Is that a word? And how did you end up in California?
So that was a job later. I went from working in the oil and gas industry, where I was looking for oil reserves down in the deep Gulf of Mexico. And then I moved out to California to follow some folks and went into hydrogeology, the geology of water. And then from there, went into cleaning up water and into the hazardous waste field, cleaning up oil or any other kind of chemicals from soil, groundwater, and air.
And when you were there, you became a masseuse.
I went to massage therapy school, continuing this path of understanding and experiencing and being with the human condition and the human body. And so massage, I had originally trained in New Orleans, but I actually went and got certified in California. Ultimately, I sat on the West Virginia Board of Massage Therapy when I went for my residency in West Virginia.
Later,
yeah.
And
but it all fits together.
It did. So I didn't realize you started being, I didn't know there were shamans in New Orleans. I don't know why, but I always think about that as being maybe more in California. So you've began to understand yourself and want to do more than just study science. And you've gone to California, you're continuing in your degree with your career, and you've become a masseuse. Acupuncture?
Acupuncture came later on. Acupuncture came after I actually became a physician.
Oh.
And it is one of the best things that I ever did learn. Now, I am a medical acupuncturist, not a traditional Chinese medicine acupuncturist. Those individuals spend as long in school as medical students spend in school. So I am a person who knows how to use acupuncture within the framework of medicine. So just to be clear.
Okay, so you're out there and you all of a sudden say, I've got to go back to medical school. What was there a life-changing moment that you're like, I'm moving back to New Orleans and I'm starting medical school?
There was. And I actually got deferred from medical school twice. So I had talked to the folks when I was still in New Orleans before I moved to California and said, I'm thinking about this. And, what would it take? And I didn't have any biology. Right? No biology courses in college.
A geologist doesn't have any biology?
No, but I had paleontology. And paleontology, and this is how I explained it, I said, paleontologist is just the biology of dead things. They said, if you can get a 10 on your MCAT score, we'll accept your paleontology as biology credits.
Okay.
And so I had to go and do that twice. I had to work at it, right? So if at first you don't succeed, try again. So I worked at it. I got it. They remembered the deal. They accepted me. And then for 2 years in sequence, I was having such a good sort of career opportunity in California, I deferred admission to medical school. They said, that's pretty unheard of. They said, no, you can come next year. Then they said it again, you can come next year. And the third time, I was ready to say, I may not do this.
Because you were loving your job in California so much.
Loving my job in California. But I came to a family reunion at Mount Nebo. Yes, Arkansas comes into the mix again. Arkansas is a place I come back to all the time.
Yeah, I'll say.
So we were at Mount Nebo. I had been listening to this program that Bill Moyers did, one of the first programs about holistic medicine. As I'm driving up to Mount Nebo on Highway 7, beautiful scenery, right? Just there with nature, thinking, okay, I don't know, should I do it? How do I want to do this, right? I really want to embody natural medicine and natural healing, but I also want my voice to be able to be heard. And I still really liked what I was doing in California. Very successful in that career. And so I went up there to Mount Nebo. I said, something big is going to have to happen to me to make this change. And so one of the first things that happened was my nephew ate a mushroom and had to be rushed to Little Rock to have his stomach pumped out. That was not big enough. That medicine had saved the day there was not big enough. The next day, somebody actually drowned at the pool and was brought back with CPR. Not big enough. The third day, Big thunderstorm came up over the mountain, struck the cabin that the whole family was staying at, and 3 of my relatives got struck by lightning. Usually God speaks to you and lightning strikes when you're not listening, but that was not big enough.
No.
So not big enough. And I told my mama this was going to have to happen. If this happened, I'd go to medical school. I went back to California. I went back to where I was living. The dog that was there that I was living with, it actually jumped up and bite me in the face. Really, I needed to go get stitches. 5 hours earlier, I told my mama something's going to have to jump up and bite me in the face to go to medical school.
You mean 5 hours before your dog bit you
exactly
in the face?
That.
I just got goosebumps.
I said exactly that.
You've been struck by lightning.
No, I hadn't. Family members had, but nevertheless, it happened really close to me, right? And it's like, okay, I get the message. This is something that I have to do. So this is not a choice that I can make. This is a choice. This is my life's work. This is my path. I need to go to medical school.
That is your shaman side of your brain working there, baby.
That is. It's, when you choose any path that you're on in life, when you choose to step on it, then God shows you the way.
That is so true.
If you do not listen, then he still shows you the way. Right? So
he shakes your tree.
That's it.
Bites your face.
Whatever
sends
it is.
a lightning bolt, drowns your neighbor. Or what was the first one?
The mushroom.
Or your heart has a
the poison
hallucinogenic
mushroom.
trip.
Yes. I never ask anymore for danger to my body as a sign. I don't do that. We've done it once. We don't need to do it again.
Wow, this is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the uber interesting Henri Roca III. Dr. Henri Roca III, who practices and teaches the methodology of functional medicine, holistic medicine, integrative medicine, and Western medicine, and listens to the universe at Central Arkansas Veterans Administration and at his North Little Rock private practice, One Medicine Wellness Services. We'll talk about the issues facing veterans and how he is using integrative functional medicine in their treatment and how some of these treatments might work for us. We'll ask him what he believes is the number one thing we should do to get healthy and some common mistakes we all make in our diets and lifestyle habits. We'll be back to get healthy and informed after the break.
Flagandbanner.com is so much more than a flag store. Dress up your address, plan a perfect party, or throw some pillows on your porch. Bring in your old U.S. flag and get $5 off a new one. Hurry down to theflagandbanner.com. Downtown Little Rock, open Monday through Saturday.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Over 40 years ago, with only $400, Kerry founded Arkansas Flag and Banner. During the last 4 decades, the business has grown and changed, starting with door-to-door sales, then telemarketing, to mail order and catalog sales. And now, a third of their sales come via the internet. This past year, Flag and Banner added another internet feature, live chatting. Over time, Kerry's business and leadership knowledge grew. As early as 2004, she began sharing this knowledge on her weekly blog. And in 2009, she founded a nonprofit Friends of Dreamland Ballroom. And in 2014, Brave Magazine was launched. Today, she's branched out to the radio with this very production, podcast, and live stream on Facebook. Each week on this show, you'll hear candid conversations between her and her guest about real-world experiences on a variety of businesses and topics that we hope you'll find interesting and inspiring. If you'd like to ask Kerry a question, share your story, or underwrite any of our past or present shows, send an email to questions@upyourbusiness.org or message her on flagandbanners.com Facebook page. Back to you, Kerry.
Thank you, Jason. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Henri Roca III, like Roku. It is actually kind of like Roku, but it's Roca III, who is one of only a few doctors in the nation that practices and teaches the methodology of integrative medicine, holistic medicine, functional medicine, and Western medicine. He is currently on staff at Central Arkansas Veterans Administration and at his own clinic in North Little Rock, Arkansas, aptly named One Medicine Wellness Services. Before the break, we talked about how Henri went from being a geologist, what do you call it, paleontologist, to a life-changing event that just jumped up and bit him in the face. That's kind of an inside joke. If you didn't hear it, you'll have to go listen to the podcast later. And so now he is, and also how his life just weaves in and out of Arkansas. He's actually from Louisiana, lived in California, but through the years, his life has just weaved, like I said, back through the.
One of the great things is that in all of this weaving, this medicine, the medicine that puts everything together, that's why the business is called One Medicine, Wellness Services, because eventually all of these different forms of healing are going to just be one medicine. We're just going to have it all together.
When are we going to do that? I wish it'd hurry up and happen.
Well, it's happening now. I mean, it's
You're one of few doctors that believes all that.
Well, this is true, so I don't need to believe it, but it is true also that it isn't pervasive. It's not across every system, but almost every system now has some idea of integrative medicine. And you were asking, what are these different things, right? So integrative medicine is when you're putting many different components of other healing techniques and perspectives together. So that's using chiropractic or acupuncture or massage or yoga or tai chi or different energy things, or working with nutrition, working with spiritual approaches. All of these things being brought together to help the individual toward wellness.
Integrate all these things together.
Integrate them, all of these pieces. But it's still pieces being brought together.
Okay.
The wonderful thing about my training, I think of people as if they are a crystal, right? When you look at a crystal from one perspective, you only see one face. If you have many perspectives to look at that person through, it's as if you see many of the facets of the crystal. And by doing that, you get an idea about how the whole works. So if you only look at an individual through one particular lens, whether that's a conventional medicine lens or a Chinese medicine lens or a Vedic or homeopathy or whatever it may be, then you're screening all of your information through that lens. If you can see the person from many different perspectives, you have a better chance of seeing the whole person. And that's holistic. When you see the whole person, their mind, their spirit, their body, how their community interacts, how they interact with their community, how they sleep, even issues around financial wellness, everything that goes on with the person contributes to how that person exists in reality in this moment. And everything that they've done over the course of their life turns their genes on and off toward either illness or wellness. And that's the holistic perspective.
What about that was integrative. What about the functional medicine?
So functional medicine is when you're saying, okay, well, instead of looking at all of these different descriptors, all these symptoms, and let's just treat the symptom. Let's treat this itis or that osis or whatever it is. And what we do in conventional medicine is we identify those things, we give them a name, and then we work to treat them with usually medication. Let's look more deeply. Let's look at how all of these things may be related to some core processes that are not in balance, and how those processes, those functions, contribute to all of these symptoms being created. Let's look even more deeply than that and say, what drives those processes to be out of balance? What kinds of choices, what kinds of things have happened over the course of that individual's life? What kinds of genetic predispositions might they have that lead them in this direction?
So genetics would fall into the functional medicine.
Genetics falls into functional medicine. Life choices, life experiences, life exposures fall into functional medicine.
So functional medicine looks at your life and how it's evolved and what you're doing and your habits. And integral medicine looks at how to take all these different applications of acupuncture and diet and integrate them all into your life?
Integrate them into your life, integrate them into a therapeutic plan to help you bring your life back to a better place of balance. Functional medicine helps you understand what is out of balance. If you use the metaphor of the stove, right? And you are a pot and you got a lot of stuff boiling, then what are your choices? You could put the lid on the pot, ratchet it down like a pressure cooker. And that's what we do when we put medicine on symptoms. We just try to cap it off, right?
Yeah.
But the fire's still burning. So the process that's driving that symptom is still going. You may have shut off one symptom, but it's going to pop up someplace else. Functional medicine works to understand what's in the pot and understand what's driving the fire and work to turn that fire off. When you turn that fire off, those symptoms resolve largely on their own.
We don't just treat the symptoms. We go to the root of the cause.
The root of the root. And when you think you have the root of the root, then you ask the question why and see if there is an even deeper root.
It sounds like a lot of psychology goes into this.
Every chronic disease is a psychological challenge.
Really?
Really. Every chronic disease is something that has been created largely, something that's been created by a behavior somewhere along the way. And so any kind of behavior is a question of how does a person's mind work? What are they compelled by? What's been reinforced in their life? And those are psychological questions.
I remember when I was watching you speak, a girl said something about her eating habits and something, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she attributed her youth having sweets was a reward for her as a child and comfort for her, and that she was having a hard time breaking away from the comfort of eating chocolate and like you said, the root came from so far back as a reward from her parents.
That's exactly right. And that's why you need to understand the entire history of a person. So very often in conventional medicine, we do something called the history of the present illness. And if you let people talk about it without stopping them, they'll talk about 90 seconds at most. And do you think that that's the summation of everything you need to know? No, but with conventional medicine, we're often very happy with just a few pieces of information. When did this symptom start? When did it get worse? Does it get better? And then you work to treat the symptom. Here, it's like, so what contributed to the creation of that situation? And there you may have to go back way deep in life. You certainly have to know what the family history is. That gives you an idea about the genetics. You have to know what the intrauterine history is. When your mom was carrying you, when you were in utero, when you were a little baby in the womb.
It goes that far back.
What was going on with your mama that may have changed how your genes work through the course of your life? Did she get antibiotics? Was there a lot of stress? Did she smoke? Did she use any other kind of substances?
Oh, my poor daughter.
There you go. And so,
I smoked and was under a lot of stress.
it changes how genes get turned on. And in that critical time, that's a critical time. Of course, we all know that. In that critical time, some of those genes get turned on and they don't get turned off. If you were exposed to very low levels of toxins, sometimes when those genes get turned on early in life, it looks like you can't turn them off. And the best thing you can do is to learn how to cope with that. So to learn coping strategies that help you work around that. Now, if those genes are turned on, like when you're 5 or 6, it looks like those things can be turned off. But early in life, things sort of get hardwired at a point.
So you, all this, you decided you were going to come back to Arkansas, and you went to the VA and you tried to get a medical license here at Arkansas, and you talked exactly like you're talking now, and they just thought you were a quack.
I don't know what they thought, but they initially thought, well, I'll tell you a short version of that story. They initially thought that maybe they didn't want this kind of medicine practiced in Arkansas.
That's a nice way to say it.
And but with the help of national folks at the VA and with the help of folks at UAMS, both of whom they asked to speak to this idea of, do we really need to educate our medical students in integrative, holistic, and functional medicine? Is this something they need to know? And clearly, every time a human being in this state or anywhere on the planet uses a vitamin, a supplement, or an herb on their own, that individual is trying to practice biochemistry. They're trying to figure out how their body works and to use natural things to help them to a better place of health. So the answer is absolutely. We need to train our medical professionals in how this kind of a system works so that we can understand where our population is coming from. Everybody is trying to work to improve their health. Now, there's different kinds of information out there. People find information in different ways, and it's not always a very efficient thing that they choose to do. But nevertheless, everybody's trying to do it.
So you did get your job at the VA.
Well, I had that job before the license, but yes,
You had the job before the license, and then you got your license, and now you've been here since 2013.
Yep.
Tell us about the issues facing veterans and how you're treating PTSD and chronic pain and getting them back into the society and our aging veterans. There's so much to talk about veterans.
Well, there's so much to talk about there, but I'm going to sort of broaden it out because I was brought in to work on issues around pain. Now, this is before the nation was aware of, quote, the opioid crisis, right? So the opioid crisis is something that's only about 2 years old in terms of the way that the media talks about it. But it was smoldering. It was there for a long time, and not by the fault of any individual who was using narcotics, right? I mean, people would say, hey, help me with my pain. And the medical system, in order to help with pain, their approach is, well, let's suppress pain. Not let's understand it, not let's try to reverse it, not let's try to give people skills so that it won't be as severe in their life, but let's suppress it. And we have this list of medications to suppress pain. And those were the opioids, narcotic medications. Out there for years and years, the brain makes its own narcotics, and then chemistry found out ways of creating it outside the body, and we could give it to ourselves, if that makes sense. So that's been out there for years and years, decades and decades. The process of we're just going to suppress it. You don't have to feel it. It's okay. We don't care why it's happening. We can make you not feel it. Now, that was never the wisest way, but we didn't have the perspective to understand that within the medical profession. So the medical profession did it, but they didn't know that they were doing something quite as bad as what it turned out we were doing. So this was a problem smoldering for years and years. And there are parts of the population that tend to have more pain than other parts of the population. And certainly those people who have issues with trauma tend to have more issues with chronic pain. Now, that trauma can be trauma early in life. Individuals who have early childhood trauma, neglect, mental, physical, sexual, any kind of abuse early in life tend to have more challenges with pain if they experience something that creates pain. And certainly in our veteran population, there is a lot of opportunity for trauma. Not everybody who has trauma has problems with chronic pain. It's not a one-to-one thing, but there is often an association. And so the challenge is not how do we suppress it. That is never the challenge. Now, if a person is in a really terrible place or a dangerous place, then, you have to control blood pressure so that you don't stroke out, right? That is a suppression. Yes. I am totally supportive of that kind of approach. Sure. But the better approach is, what can be reversed? Is there anything that can be reversed? What functions are out of balance that can ultimately be worked on from the individual's perspective to bring it back into balance so that this glass, if you think of pain as like a glass that is some degree filled, how do we keep from filling it from the top? How do we keep from continuing to put stuff in? Yeah. And so that is the idea of the way that I approach pain in any person. You
give them acupuncture? I mean, you're trying to get them off of hydrocodone. So how do you?
I'm smiling. You see, I'm smiling.
I know.
It's
Why
like
are you
I'm
grinning
smiling,
at me like
right?
that?
Because
it's not that there's no simple answer.
Well, there's no simple answer, but even that thought is, how do we take pain away? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, and that's what got us into the problem.
That's exactly
what I was doing. It got us into the problem of like, okay, we'll give them a narcotic.
So you want to teach them to live with it?
Well, there is teaching to live with it, but there is also the idea of how do we reverse what can be reversed, which is not a question of taking it away, not a question of suppressing it. It's a question of rebalancing things so that that glass becomes less filled.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
You repair it. You're not treating the symptoms again. You're treating the problem.
Trying to understand what's driving the problem. And for every individual, that will be a different possibility, right? We call it all pain, But
Well, I know what the number one thing is you're going to tell people to do: lose weight, and they're not going to do it.
no, well,
Or exercise, and they're not going to do it. I mean, us humans, Americans are just trained to take a pill for it.
well, that is true.
That's
but
our- that's
you
our-
asked folks the question, where has it gotten you? And most people will tell you not where they want to be.
So they are receptive to
That's
changing their lifestyles.
not because anyone is ever told to do it. Whenever you tell anybody to do something, you evoke the 2-year-old in every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened when we were 2, when someone told us to do something? The answer is no, right?
Yeah.
Just like you said, no.
Yeah.
So it's never, you need to do this. It's like, there's lots of opportunities here. What are you ready to do? And people are often thinking about what they might do, but they're wondering if is it the right thing to do, or do I have to do it alone? Is there support to do this? Is there somebody to help me do this? And when you give someone a lot of opportunities, a lot of options to choose from, and a lot of support to go in the direction that they choose, then you can get sustainable change. But here's a question for you.
Okay.
Is pain a thing
For me,
in general?
I mean, yeah, it's a thing. I mean, it is a thing. Is it a tangible thing? No, but it is a real thing.
So sensation is a thing,
Oh,
but pain is an experience. Silence, right? I mean, that's
I'm
shocking.
trying to think about
That's
that.
a shocking thing to say, right? But
Pain is an experience.
so pain is not one thing, because if we say pain is one thing, that implies that it is something, and it is
Tangible.
something predictable in each person who experiences it. And if we think that pain's a thing, it leads us to the thought that, well, then we just need a pill for this thing, which was the problem before. We thought that pain was a thing. We had a pill, the narcotics. We said, throw it at everybody, regardless of what's going on with them, and that'll help everybody, right? And what we find out is addiction and death, and people become tolerant to it and need higher dosages, and it isn't the same for everybody. So pain is an experience. It's an experience based on having this sensation that people would find uncomfortable, maybe want to move away from. But it isn't just the sensation. It's all the things that can contribute to pain. Maybe those are hormonal, maybe it's nutritional, maybe it has to do with inflammation or toxins or infections. All of that gets thrown in there. Right now, that's not the pain, but yet if you see pain as a thing, you never think to look more deeply and say, okay, well, let's unwind that, because it isn't really one thing. It is the final common interpretation of a whole series of things that are going on. And then you throw the interpretation in there. What's the interpretation? It's everything you've ever experienced that's caused you pain, and all the things you're concerned about because of it, whether it's dysfunction or not being able to relate to your family or not being able to keep a job. It's all of those worries and anxieties and fears come into the picture. And all of that is balled up, messed up, and jumbled up into all of these other inputs that come from the body. And then you interpret it and say, is it something that I can live with or not live with? Do I need to avoid it? How am I going to avoid it? Do I pursue medication to avoid it? It's an experience. It's an interpretation.
Pain is an experience.
If you see pain as an experience and an interpretation, there's a lot of opportunity to actually work to reverse components of it and to help people refine how they choose to view it. Very often, if this continues on and on and on, and it grows into this big old knot, this huge snowball rolling downhill, then people start to avoid any kind of sensation because of fear that the sensation will be strong enough that it will cause their previous experience.
And then you don't live life.
You don't live life. Your primary relationship comes to be with that sensation and not with the people you love. You get separated from God. You don't go out into nature. And yes, you live in a hole.
You become reclusive.
Mm-hmm.
You see it all the time. All right, this is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Henri Roca III, who practices and teaches the methodology of holistic medicine, functional medicine, integrative medicine, and Western medicine at Central Arkansas Veterans Administration and at his North Little Rock private practice, aptly named One Medicine Wellness Services. We'll continue learning with the smart man how we can blend our mind, body, and soul into a more healthy and productive life. And we'll be taking calls. But first, I want to remind everyone we're broadcasting live every Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time on KABF 88.3 FM, the voice of the people, and flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. And that after 1 week of every show's airing, a podcast is made available on all popular listening sites and YouTube. We'll be back after the break with the phone number.
Flagandbanner.com is so much more than a flag store. Dress up your address, plan a perfect party, or throw some pillows on your porch. Bring in your old U.S. flag and get $5 off a new one. Hurry down to theflagandbanner.com. Downtown Little Rock, open Monday through Saturday.
Flag and Banner is proud to underwrite Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. This weekly radio show and podcast offers listeners firsthand insight in starting and running a business, the ups and downs of risk-taking, and the commonalities of successful people shared in a conversational interview with Kerry. Along with this radio show, flagandbanner.com publishes a free biannual magazine called Brave. First published in October 2014, this magazine celebrates and inspires readers through its human interest in storytelling. The Department of Arkansas Heritage recognized Brave Magazine's documentation of American life and microfiches all editions for the Arkansas State Archives. Free subscription and advertising opportunities for the upcoming spring 2019 edition are available at flagandbanner.com by selecting Magazine, where you can read previous stories and learn about advertising opportunities. Back to you, Kerry.
Thank you. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Dr. Henri Roca III, who is one of only a few doctors in the nation that practices and teaches the methodology of holistic integrative medicine, functional medicine, and Western medicine. He is currently on staff at Central Arkansas Veterans Administration and had his own clinic in North Little Rock, Arkansas, aptly named One Medicine Wellness Services. If you've got a question, you may make a comment on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page, or you can send me an email if you want to at questions. That's questions with an S at flagandbanner.com. Or you can write this number down and call.
501-433-0088.
Jason, give it again.
501-433-0088.
We were just talking at the break about what you said before the break, which was that I can't hardly even repeat it because it was kind of abstract for me, but it came down to the fact that we've been thinking of pain as a noun.
As a thing, as a specific thing. And usually people think of it as the pain, which means like a proper noun. Mm-hmm. Just like you would have a name for your wife or your husband. Mm-hmm. And this, the pain, tends to sort of accompany you.
Mm-hmm. We're already getting a phone call. Hello, caller, you're on the air with Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. Do you have a question for Dr. Roca, Dr. Henri Roca?
Yes, I have a question that is kind of self-serving.
That's all right.
Possible comment. I'm a veteran. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and diagnosed with PTSD. But I was a patient of Dr. Helene's in the neurology pain clinic, and Dr. Helene did many innovative things that for this one work seen in VA. One of them is acupuncture. I had wonderful results with the acupuncture, and some other things like spinning my blood down the centrifuge and injecting them in my back to tighten up areas that were allowing the back to get out of alignment, and then pain. Unfortunately, his contract wasn't renewed by the med center, and he left. And since that time, the acupuncture department has sort of deteriorated, and I'd like to know who might be contacted at the VA, what department, to see if I can get, anything that can discuss some issue with the extreme pain that I'm experiencing.
So just talk to your primary care provider, and they can work to refer you into the platelet-rich prolotherapy, as you're talking about. That's the injection stuff, or into acupuncture services and physical medicine.
So you have a general...
Okay, now,
Go ahead.
There's an issue with that because the primary care physicians, I go to receive our clinic, just don't have that information. They didn't even know that the VA was doing acupuncture. When I tried to get referred to someone after Dr. Helene left, I got sent to like the voice they do for people that they try to get them back into working again and that level. I had no success whatsoever in getting seen. I asked that doctor about the acupuncture just a few floors above him. He said, we don't do that at the VA. So what department are you with?
So the acupuncture occurs both in primary care and in physical medicine and rehab. And you can talk to either of those departments.
And I'll put Dr. Henri Roca's information on flagandbanner.com's website so that you can find his contact information and dig deeper. This is a longer conversation than we can probably make in the next 10 minutes. All right, I'll put it on flagandbanner.com's website and you can get in contact with him.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. Thank you, caller, for that call. I know people get lost in the VA and they can't figure out where they're supposed to go.
In any system.
Any of those big systems.
It is wonderful, everything that the VA has to offer. And just like any system, navigating it becomes almost a second career.
It does, doesn't it?
I don't know how anybody survives a conventional healthcare system. If you go into the hospital, you need somebody there who can talk the language, or you are more subjected to it than you are served by it.
Oh, that's interesting to think about. All right, let's talk about opening your practice. You have One Medicine Wellness Services, which is the name of your practice. What's the website for that?
DrHenriRoca.com.
And Henri is spelled like Henry with an I.
It's the New Orleans version. It is the French version.
I know.
Henri, last name Roca. Where else in this country could you have a name that's both French and Spanish and still be entirely American?
Henri, Henri. And when he came in, I called him Henry. He said, no. I'm Henri.
Yes, that's the real thing.
So you've heard me slip a few times because I'm totally American. I'm not as civilized as
Well, you know, New Orleanians are totally American too.
I know. But no, they're a nice blend of French.
Of course, most people think we're sort of not, but we really are.
They're a nice blend of French. They've got some nice French, very unique French things about them.
Yeah, we've just never been owned by the English.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right.
That's the differentiator.
Roca, ROCA.com. And and at your clinic, you say this: we provide individual and corporate personalized, proactive, predictive medical evaluations and treatments focused around, let me start that up. So we provide individual and corporate personalized, proactive, predictive medical evaluations and treatments focused around natural interventions that help folks, I love how you put folks, toward their best health. And I think we've talked about that a little bit when we described functional medicine.
It is functional medicine. That is a description of functional medicine. Personalized, proactive. You don't wait for a disease to occur, right? Nothing drives me more crazy than a person who you can see in looking at them, their family history, their choices in their lives, and you can see that they are on the road to diabetes. And yet in our usual healthcare system, very often we wait until they can be diagnosed with diabetes to tell them. And it can be years and years and years before any lab changes that you can predict that they're on the diabetes highway.
When you do lab work, you don't do the traditional lab work, do you?
I do all the traditional lab work, but often check some additional labs that help me be more predictive, that help understand what's going to be happening to a person and help to identify some of those functions that may be out of balance. Things about metabolism, things about inflammation, things about toxicity. Even before they become a problem in the person's life, we want to optimize wellness. So we don't want to just say, oh, you're good enough today. Let's wait until later when we have something to intervene on. We want to say, these are some processes you might want to think about, and these are some ways to do it. And this is your choice. If you want to work toward wellness, this is a great time to do it. If you want to wait and use up that wellness and eventually lose the resiliency and develop illness, that is also your choice.
So if I come to your clinic, which my daughter did, and she loved it, because she suffers really bad from allergies. And you said exactly what you talked about earlier in a segment before, she probably can't completely get rid of them, so she's got to learn how to manage them. But I don't know what the first thing was that you had her do. What is the first thing if I was to come to your clinic and say, this is my issue, what should I do?
Well, on the website is an intake form that people can fill out, which is usually very helpful for the individual. It starts to broaden their perspective on the kinds of things that may be important. There are questions that people don't usually ask, that they often have to ask parents or loved ones and find out what happened early on in their childhood. Everything is important. Everything that's happened leads you to where you are now and can be a piece of what can be unwound so that you get to a better place. So that's one thing that people can do before they arrive. But the first thing we do is we take a very detailed history, very detailed. The family history is pretty usual within medical practice. That's usual. But then the uterine history, very rare. We're talking about early childhood, middle childhood, late childhood, early adulthood, all of these things that may not be related to what the complaint is very important. We identify what the individual wants to get out of the service. So what's their goal? Right? I mean, once I hear their history, there may be other things that are apparent to me, but we want to deal with what the individual came for. My challenge is to put it all together so that we understand how all of these other things are relating to what the individual came for. And the approach is something that we call health coaching. So in other words, it's much more focused on empowering the individual to make decisions and changes. Now, if something, like I said earlier, high blood pressure, you control that. You are very directive. You need to take this, and I will do that if it's urgent or emergent. But what's much more common is that we have time. We have time to work on these things, and it will take time for these functions to get back to a better place of balance. So the question is not about my telling a person what to do. The question is, this what I call a possibility conversation. If we understand how a person winds up in this place, quite literally, then there is a constellation, a whole bunch of possible ways out. I can help identify which ones I think will be the highest yield so that if you work at it, you get the best results most quickly. But ultimately, it's the individual who chooses what they're ready to work at.
How about the power of prayer?
Absolutely essential. Now, when I talk to folks about their spiritual tradition, it's not about their religious tradition, because everybody has a different religious tradition, and whatever your religious tradition is fine by me. It is whatever you choose it to be. What I'm concerned with is, how do you connect to whatever you perceive as your higher power? How are you connected to a larger community? Some folks don't even see that connection. They are who they are, and they are the end all and be all. And that's fine. And there's a particular way of working with individuals who have that perspective. So there's no one excluded from the process. But we know that when people are connected to community, we know when people have a prayer practice, have a religious practice, that the health outcomes for those folks are better overall. Their life expectancy is better overall. To be part of a faith community is a protective health experience for folks.
What about the power of laughter?
So let me talk about prayer, because prayer is so important, and a lot of people, they do what's called petitionary prayer, right? Okay. And they're asking God for things. And my question to folks is, well, do you ever pause and be in a place of silence so that you can hear what God has to say back? And that is the most important piece of prayer. And I like to put it in those words because everyone can translate that into their own perspective, what that means for them, to be able to be quiet and prayerful and contemplative and reflective and loving in that space to hear whatever can come back. That is a tremendously healing component of prayer. Laughter is amazing, right? Laughter is one of those things that can control pain, because laughter induces the body to release the hormones that the body makes itself to control pain. Laughter is an amazing thing. It can relieve stress, relieve tension. It can take you out of any kind of stressful moment that you're in. And it doesn't have to be like spontaneous laughter. Like somebody tells you a joke, it tells you a funny story, or you watch The Three Stooges or something funny on TV. You can do something called laughter yoga, where people just start laughing. And, people got all kind of silly, crazy little laughs. And before long, people are literally belly laughing, not because they're making themselves do it, but because they start making themselves do it. And because they're with a group of people and all these other people laughing in all kind of weird ways, you end up laughing spontaneously and deeply. And when that happens, it lifts your spirit, it relieves pain, it helps you sleep. It is a wonderful therapy. Laughter yoga is a great way to get to it.
We didn't get to reflexology. We didn't get to
there's a zillion things.
Diet, exercise. There are so many things we didn't get to, but I do love your quote. Everything that has ever happened to you, every choice you have ever made brings you to the health you have today. I want everybody to know that I'm speaking with Dr. Henri Roca from, what's the name of your clinic again?
One Medicine Wellness Services.
One Medicine Wellness Services, and that he is also online at drhenriroca.com, right? And that you'll be able to find all his contact information at flagandbanner.com. We'll put links to everything and definitions to all the things that he said today, because he said so much. I have a gift for you. It's a desk set, flags, imagine that. And look, it's got the U.S., because, of course, we're all Americans.
Right there in the center. Oh, my God. Look, it's all the flags that I've been to.
You recognized them all. California, Louisiana, and Connecticut, because you taught in Connecticut.
Yes, that is absolutely fantastic.
It's
I can't wait to put this on my desk. This is great.
Thank you so much for coming on. We're out of time today. I just want to tell everybody that I'll be gone next week, and we're going to have a rerun, and it's going to be a great show. And I want to thank all our listeners for spending time with us. And if they think this program's been about them, they're right. But it's also been for us. Thank you for letting us fulfill our destiny. Our hope today is that you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. If you miss any part of the show or want to learn more about UIYB, go to flagandbanner.com and click on Radio Show. Like us on Facebook or subscribe to her weekly podcast wherever you like to listen. All interviews are recorded and posted the following week with links to resources you heard discussed on today's show. Underwriting opportunities available upon request. Kerry's goal is to help you live the American dream.